something that I would say it's 90% done. Um, and then the guide of best practices is something that we're starting actually now to build, which essentially will scan some countries in Europe and see what are the best practices in combating gender-based violence. When I say warriors of gender-based violence, it's not like we are trying to, act on it. We're trying to support it. And then the methodology for safe spaces. So we have this concept, we have this idea of how to make safe spaces. But in order to teach others as well how to do it, they need to follow some certain rules, some structure. And this is what we're trying to provide as well. Yeah, I had something I want to say, but I forgot about it. The term warriors. Why warriors? Well, honestly, I thought it would be a bit risky in terms of Erasmus and the EU. Like, I thought it would be a bit aggressive. I like the term warriors for a very specific reason. It doesn't show that you're either winning or losing something, but you're still combating it, because people usually say for very big issues, "Oh, a survivor of this," and it's not a bad term to use. But what about the people that didn't? They're still fighting it. They're still having some, let's say, they're still combating it as well. So people that help combat gender-based violence, people that are going through something like this now, they're all warriors. And this is something I wanted to unify both the sad side of it and those who were successful. So, moving on with the platform. So, like TFN has a bit of, let's say, competencies on the digital side. So we took in the interactive map. This is one of the parts of the platform. This is how it's going to look like. It's still not populated, but essentially a person without logging in or anything could visit the interactive map and find best practices, tools, and resources to combat gender-based violence. I'll move on. Then safe spaces. Now this was a bit of a, let's say, technical, maybe innovation or a different solution we had to make. So okay, I can make a safe space with someone in let's say, physical space, but what about those that cannot happen, or those that don't want to appear with us? They still deserve to have an opportunity to talk about their issues as well. Oh, yeah, sorry. So we created the safe spaces in the platform. This is just a shot of it. If I remember correctly, is this still live, or is it?
It is.
It is.
We haven't started yet, but we will start soon organizing regular safe spaces that we are moderating, but we also have the option of users creating their own safe spaces.
Yeah. So it's aimed at young people and youth workers to have a space to talk, listen, find, and provide support to people. It's completely voluntary. You can host one, and you can also be part of one, depending on what is on the calendar or how you feel as well. So giving the methodology on how to create safe spaces, essentially this is why it happened. We thought of online safe spaces and how to facilitate or participate in one of them. So these are 3 more things that there's no need to show pictures of, actually, except the last one. Organizational hub. So among a lot of other things, they're collecting best practices as well. We wanted to collect also NGOs or any kind of organization, it could be public as well, that has certain initiatives, certain structures, certain methodology on combating gender-based violence, and to bring them all available to you. So instead of looking just locally, let's say there is an action happening in Bulgaria, right? They have done something that works, but with the organizational hub, someone can, from another country, get some of those resources as well, and also connect with some organizations in the, let's say, in the prospect of even developing a new project, right? Then warrior stories. There's a lot on the platform, just as it. warrior stories. So another thing we wanted to shed light, and honestly, I see it more in Greece. There are many pages that there are confessions of people that have gone through that have had in some way gender-based violence inflicted on them. These stories are heartbreaking, to be honest. They are really depressing, some of them, and then there are others that they note exactly what they went through and how they overcame that. There's one in Greek. It says, "Don't birth a girl, mi genis koritsi," which is very, very impactful. The minute I read about that, it was I don't know. It kind of gave me chills. Don't birth a girl because of what she's gonna face, and it's a pretty popular page, thankfully. But yeah, the stories there were incredible. Some ways of just reading the success that people had gave you motivation to that. So we wanted to create something also on the platform for that, so people can go and anonymously submit a story that they have gone through. So for others to also get inspired or just get that extra motivation when you think that no one survives this, or you're facing incredible odds, which in reality it's pretty difficult. There are at least some success stories, some stories of people surviving that you can relate to. It helps in that way. And then the self-assessment quiz. I'm a bit running out of time. The self-assessment quiz. So at the moment, bless you, there are four categories. Not at the moment, there are four categories. For those that it may be difficult to read. One is in education, two, personal relationships, three, professional environment, and four, life in general. So essentially, the quiz started in trying to identify if you're a victim or a perpetrator of gender-based violence, because we thought that also in the brainstorming sessions we had, people may not know that what they're doing is gender-based violence, and that's not as you were saying, Michal, before, in prevention and punitive actions. We usually jump ship and scold and reprimand without people that may not be aware, culturally, religiously, socially. These, yeah, go.
We had some cases in our training when we trained our youth workers, librarians, when they realized that they were victims of some sort of violence, like economic violence, and we talked about among among ourselves. But it was so interesting. Like, I didn't know that doing that has a name, and that's a type of violence.
Yeah, exactly. And as a person also, even writing this, I'm still learning out that there's some things that they cause harm to another person, and we don't realize that. But that doesn't make us a bad person. It only makes us if we are very aware of it and we do it intentionally. But so this quiz essentially guides you through 10 questions per each category, and instead of scolding and saying you're a bad person for doing this, it gives you the explanation, which essentially says that it's not okay, but it's understandable why you are acting this way, but this causes this type of harm. And as you're saying, Mikhai, this is where we started learning more types of violence and what kind of bias people have. Sorry, I think I'm going a bit too fast. So the self-assessment quiz and the project consortium. So we did submit this project with the coordinators in Lithuania, the Women's Issues Information Center, which have a history and a record of dealing with all issues of gender-based violence and more, with Martha Centers, as Martha represented herself as well, the Future Now Association, and Mosaic, which is an NGO in Spain. I don't remember exactly where. Yeah. So in Barcelona, which deals with these kind of issues as well, and gender equality and so with identity.
LGBTQ is their specialty.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, and we haven't presented yet the guide of best practices or the methodology because they're not actually completed yet. But we would like you to do follow up with this, because you can either be a participant in the safe spaces, you can host one, You can go through the best practices and see what fits for your youth work in your context. You can read the methodology, which I hope makes an impact in your youth work, in your youth centers. And overall, the main purpose was to raise awareness, give the tools, digital and, let's say, literary, in order to combat this and hopefully influence someone else's life as well. So, lunch break is now. This is all from me, by the way.
We also wanted to present Warriors Against Gender-Based Violence because it's a very dear to our hearts project, and it is related to building community, to well-being, to combating and preventing violence. Lunch is going to be downstairs on the first floor, but first you have to get to the central entrance. If you want, you can follow me now, and we can go together. We have 1 hour for lunch, and then we'll meet back here where we're going to continue talking about policies and how we can improve well-being in young people.
So 2 o'clock, back here.
Thank you.
Enjoy.